Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church is a sleepy little house of worship with a small congregation in the Walnut Hills section of Huntington. But this weekend, the number of its parishioners doubled, largely because the church was showcasing its vision, which on Sunday had a worldwide focus. To commemorate the AIDS Memorial Quilt's 20th year of existence and Saturday's World AIDS Day, 6 12-by-12 panels of the AIDS quilt are on display in Beverly Hills Sanctuary. It's the only place in West Virginia where the quilt can be seen.
This church, I've found, has been historically active socially. They're interested in the great problems of the world, and this was one way to express our feelings about a devastating disease, something that robs people of their lives and steals their hope.
Pastor Harkless admits to some trepidation about potential controversy surrounding the church's involvement with the AIDS quilt, given stigmas attached to the disease and those it afflicts. But as she told worshipers Sunday, she realized that the idea of having such a display was in keeping with the type of church Beverly Hills is.
One of the most attractive things about the Presbyterian Church USA is that it doesn't insist on making people fit into molds. The church recognizes differences in thought and theology and biblical interpretation. We affirm your right to believe as God works in your heart. We cling firmly to the belief that God alone is Lord of the conscience, which means that if you have a conviction about the faith that differs from the pastor's or another member's, that is okay. We believe there is room for more than one view on many important subjects. We are not afraid of differences. In fact, we embrace them and we honor them in each other.
Saturday, volunteers had reverentially unpacked the quilt sections and then figured out exactly where and how they were going to hang the massive 12-by-12 panels. Each of the 6 the church has paid to display has 8 individual panes that contain 1 or more names on them. Each pane is 6 feet by 3 feet. No more, no less, say the instructions on the quilt's website to those who want to add to the more than 90,000 names and 52 miles of fabric that already comprise the memorial to those who've died of AIDS. Carter Seaton was the catalyst behind bringing the quilt to the church.
I lived in Atlanta for about 10 years, and during that time frame had 2 coworkers who died of AIDS. And I had seen the exhibit of probably 100 or more panels in Atlanta at a church on Emory's campus and was just overwhelmed, really, with the impact they make. And I think it's such a visual experience and such a visceral experience that I thought it was something that people who had never seen it, who had never experienced it, should have.
Marshall Professor Mary Mango, who is a member of the church, is also familiar with the devastating toll AIDS takes. She's from Malawi in Africa. Africa has about 83% of the world's deaths caused by AIDS.
Lesotho, Swaziland, the infected percentage is so high. I know most of you read statistics, but take it from me. Those statistics are some kind of estimation because there's so much data that is not even recorded or analyzed out there that do not participate in all these studies. So just add on what you read as the reality out there. So it is really devastating. Recently we're getting ideas that it's being stabilized. So the problem is still serious.
Pastor Harkless told of an experience she'd once had in ministering to the sick and dying. An AIDS patient had died, and she was fearful of even going into his room.
I admit that this was one of the most uncomfortable experiences I have ever had when visiting the sick, or the dying, or the bereaved. AIDS is a devastating disease, we know that. It's a vicious killer. It is brutal to the body. It was brutal to this young man. I'll let you in on a little secret. One of a pastor's tricks of the trade when visiting someone they don't know very well is to look around a hospital room for cards or flowers or pictures, anything that will give you a clue to this person's life and to offer you some evidence that people outside the hospital know the person is sick and care. I saw no cards, no flowers, no balloons, nothing. And I realized with a sinking heart that these broken and grieving parents were bearing their pain alone.
It was because of situations like that that the AIDS quilt was created in San Francisco in 1987 by those who realized their friends and family members who were dying at such a rapid clip were often not even being remembered, much less memorialized.
It's not just the person, but it's the outpouring of love that the people who surrounded them had to make a tribute to them. It's a sense of love. And of course, the reason that the quilts came into existence at first was because people who died of AIDS sometimes were denied funerals, denied proper burial, if you will. And this was a way for them to commemorate someone's life. And so it's a sense, it's a tribute, it's an outpouring of love.
The AIDS quilt panels are on display at Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church on Norway Avenue until December 7th, and a special service will be held Wednesday evening at 7:30. I'm Tony Seaton, reporting for HuntingtonNews.net.